everybody, and welcome back to the Progress Pondcast with me, Brendan Skwire, and co-host Martin Longman. This is episode 25. It's good to hear from you. Good to see you all. Marty, happy Father's Day. We're podcasting this on Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, my man. How you doing?
Happy Father's Day to you, Brendan.
What are you up to today?
I'm doing a little podcasting, and then I think I'm going to be eating some ribs.
Ah, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm out in State College visiting with my girlfriend, and ordinarily I'd want to jump right into the politics stuff, but one of the a cicada brood has emerged here, and like there's like dead cicadas all over the place. I was out on the back porch a second ago, and there were like at least six of them, and one's still kind of alive. But folks, whatever you're doing this Father's Day, I'm sure you know what you're doing. Where do you think John Fetterman is spending his Father's Day? And didn't he just spend his 17th anniversary with Steve Bannon there?
Yeah, his wedding anniversary with his wife, he decided to spend with Steve Bannon.
I know. And I think he fibbed about it too. I think he got caught fibbing about it, saying he was going to stay with the family. But hey, I'm not going to talk about their family life. Not my business. But speaking of celebrations, there was another big celebration this weekend, and that's Donald Trump's birthday party, come military parade, which
It's the 250th anniversary of the Army.
that's what
So,
it is.
yeah.
That's what it is. But really, it's Trump. It was Trump's birthday. I mean,
Right.
that's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
But if you watched some of the footage, and I did, you probably saw that depending on your platform, you either saw how it really was or you got a bit of a distorted picture. If you were watching something like ABC or NPR or CNN, you might have thought that this was like an amazing thing that went off without a hitch. But if you took a look at some of the other media, you'll see that
No one was there.
nobody was there.
No one was
Nobody
there.
was there.
Everyone was bored to death.
The parade, I saw saw a picture of like the security barriers like that people had to get through, and they were just empty.
Yeah.
It was emptier. It was emptier than his 2016 win. It was
Oh,
really empty.
very empty.
My favorite part was when how many favorite parts? I liked when I saw the footage of the tank rolling along, and it was so quiet that you could actually hear the wheels creaking. You're like,
The songbirds were louder than the audience. It was like this little creaking of the tank and then like this bird chirping. It was really sad.
I I also like that they were too cheap to even bother to license like music, so they played like a karaoke version of. Actually, it wasn't even Barracuda by Heart. It was like a kind of half version of Barracuda by Heart. It sounded like it, but it wasn't quite the thing.
You know what else they
Oh,
did? They if you listen to it on TV, they had a narrator
yeah,
who
yeah.
would explain to you like what the various if there was an army formation representing, World War One, they'd tell you about it. If there was a helicopter or a tank, they'd describe it and its historic significance and stuff like that. But they only set up the speakers within a very close range of the viewing stand where Trump was. So for the vast majority of the parade route, which was something like 3 miles, no one could hear anything. So they had no idea what they were even looking at.
That is just
Yeah. I mean,
hilarious.
it's not that hard to set up speakers along a parade route.
No, no, no. It's actually not. It's a fairly well. I was used to work as a stagehand. It's a fairly mundane task. This isn't rocket science.
Especially when you got a multi-million dollar budget.
Yeah, especially when you have a multi-million dollar budget.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that it was boring as fuck, and yeah, it was. Even Trump didn't look happy to be there. You know,
No.
there's this footage that's going around. It's Trump sitting in between Melania and Pete Hegseth, and behind him there's this bald guy. Um,
Probably a Secret Service agent or something. I don't know.
it's and the probably The expressions are just absolutely hilarious. Pete Hegseth looks like a beaten dog. He looks like I'm certain he had something to do with setting this whole thing up, and it's clearly a piece of shit. And Trump is going to blame someone.
Oh yeah.
And Pete's looking like a beaten dog, and he looks like he wants a drink. Oh, does he look like he wants a drink? Meanwhile, Melania's got this look on her face.
Ice Queen. Ice
Ice
Queen.
Queen. She doesn't want to be here.
Yeah.
She looks like she told Trump, I don't want to come. This is going to suck. No one's coming. Everybody hates you. They hate you as much as I do. And he made her come, and she's sitting there with this look that's
He's probably paying her agent like by the hour.
probably.
Yeah.
She's got this expression that's like equal parts like pissed off to be there and I told you so.
And I'm bored.
And I'm bored. And then in the middle, there's Trump. And he's got this, it's my party and I'll cry if I want to look on his face. Oh my God. He's like scowling and looking just all mean. But then like he starts kind of like flexing his shoulders. He's kind of like moving up and down and his face kind of twists, gets a little angrier.
Yeah.
And then behind him, you see the bald guy, his head all of a sudden turns in the president's direction. You saw this too. And I think you saw it as he was wondering whether Trump was falling asleep because the dude was so bored.
Well,
But,
yeah. So I might not have seen the exact, there's hours of footage.
oh, yeah, yeah.
So I might not have been looking at the exact same thing. What I saw was Trump had his eyes closed, and then the guy's kind of peeking around. Like my interpretation was he was thinking, is he really falling asleep? And like he did every day in court. Right?
Well,
So
he has president time,
yeah,
executive time.
there were two things that came out of him being in court. One was he fell asleep, and the other one was he was just laying smelly farts or
Well, that's the thing, because the expression, what I saw, the clip I'm talking about, he's very much awake and he's just like, and he starts moving.
like he's pinching one out.
The guy, yeah, it totally looks like he's pinching one out. He's just like he's sitting in a,
Like a baby when you're like, oh, damn, he just took a crap.
exactly. That's exactly the face. And the guy behind him looks at him and you see his eyes just kind of go, and the nose
Yeah.
twitches and it's like,
Yeah.
oh no.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Melania's like, I know this smell. I have smelled many times before. I know.
Yeah.
Oh, nope, I am used to it. Fuck you. You made me come.
Yeah. She's also keeping a distance. Like there's a little too much separation between.
Oh my God. Meanwhile, he's sitting in a pile of his rapidly cooling filth.
Yeah, it does look
That's when
like
the baby gets irritated. As you know, as a father, that's when the baby gets most irritated, is when the shit starts to get cold in their pants. It's cold and
Oh,
sticky.
yeah.
That's when they get mad,
That's
right?
the grumpy part. Yeah. Especially when their birthday party sucks.
Especially when their birthday party sucks and they know for a fact
That all the cool kids went to a different party.
went to a different party. And I went to one of the different parties in Philly.
Yeah. The No Kings party.
The No Kings party. And, I think I mentioned to you that a couple episodes ago that I went to an earlier, I think I went to the Hands Off protest and I left really quick.
Yeah, you weren't impressed. You weren't in the mood for that one.
Yeah, it was like an all old white people protest. And I was like,
you weren't feeling it.
I wasn't feeling it. I was just like, where all my black and brown friends and people at? Where's that?
Yeah.
But here, this was much bigger. This was much more like the kind of rally I'm used to, like against Iraq and against Iraq and for for reproductive rights back when Bush was president. We thought he was the worst thing in the world.
Or George Floyd, probably.
Yeah, well, I didn't go to the George Floyd protests. I wasn't.
They were big and they were diverse.
It was not like the George Floyd protest. Yeah. But this was much more like one of the George Floyd protests, and it was enormous. It was great turnout in Philly, great turnout all over the place from what I've seen. So good, and that clearly was weighing on Trump's mind. Hi, folks. It's Brendan. Thanks for listening to the Progess Pondcast. If you like what you hear, we'd love your support. Liking, sharing, and subscribing is great, but the best way to keep us afloat, that's through a monthly donation, as little as $5 a month through Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com Progress Pondcast. Don't forget that N when you're typing that out. Thanks again for listening. We appreciate all your help. And but speaking of shit, not to bring up Trump's dirty diaper again, I think we were talking before we started today that there was both of us saw some genuinely shitty coverage of the parade party.
The military parade.
Yeah,
Well,
the
no,
military.
no. Well, actually, yeah, both of lack of coverage of the Kings and uh, fawning coverage of the military parade.
Yep. The
Unwarranted fawning coverage.
You were watching ABC, right?
Yeah, so what happened with me was I needed to take a nap yesterday afternoon. And so I went upstairs, turned on the TV up there, and turned on Hulu. And as soon as I turned on Hulu, because that's how I generally watch TV, it's through
Mm-hmm.
Hulu. And I turned on Hulu, and the first thing that came up was a giant thing like 250th anniversary of the Army parade. Like, click here. Big prominent feature at that time. And the parade had probably been going on for about 20 minutes or so at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, that's interesting. Hulu's really promoting this. And the coverage that they were promoting specifically was ABC. So rather than, go pick something else, I said, okay, I'll just click here. This is quick. This is easy. So it brought up the ABC coverage, and they had a woman as the main host, and she seemed to know her stuff about military equipment and things like that. And then they had two military, like, I guess, historians. And so they could explain to you, like, when planes flew over, they could say, okay, well, this fighter jet was used to escort bombers in World War II, and
Yeah.
this is why it was significant. So it was somewhat interesting from that.
This is the Enola Gay that we renamed because of the word gay.
They did not fly the Enola Gay over the.
Did they fly the Enola straight?
To tell you the truth, I didn't watch the whole thing, so I don't know exactly what they did, but I'm pretty sure that they did not fly the Enola Gay. I think it's in the Smithsonian. But anyway,
Which they defunded, I think.
so the coverage, they were very excited about every piece of military equipment, and they seemed to think this was a great thing. But it was kind of off-putting because it was like ABC had been kind of co-opted as the MCs of the event, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I was like, this thing is so political, you
Yep.
know. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah. I was on Instagram this morning and I saw a clip on NPR. NPR is an Instagram feed, channel, whatever you call it. And I watched this woman named Ket Lunsdorf, named Ket Lunsdorf, talk about how this was just the most wonderful thing and everything was going great. She said something like, you probably can't hear me from all the cheering in the background. And it was like,
What cheering?
what cheering?
Yeah.
All the shots were super duper close up of
Yep.
everything, so you couldn't see that it was like, basically empty.
Right.
And so I actually wanted to quote her, and I couldn't find the transcript of the parade itself, but I got some of her stuff from her post mortem from later on, and she's here. I'm going to quote her. Well, you can probably hear the celebration is still going on behind me, but the parade is done and it's gone off as expected. The rain even held off for it. And then she talks about the tanks and stuff. And the President Trump is here with First Lady Melania, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth as well. And there are a lot of other people here too, spectators. The Army had estimated around 200,000 would show up. It's hard to say just how many are actually here, but it's pretty full. Which is,
Yeah.
Marty, that's not even stretching the truth.
Right.
That's outright lying.
Yeah,
I've seen the pictures.
the bleachers were mostly empty. The
Mostly empty. The mall is, or wherever they were having it, is literally effing empty. You
yeah,
can look up on the internet.
the mall looks busier than that on a nice day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
people were excited. There are a lot of families. Yeah, maybe I don't know. And he. It's just disgusting,
yeah,
and it's like the. I like the word you used there, fawning,
right.
fawning. It's like she's like basically running interference for these people, and it's like yeah. And to be honest, dude, I'm not entirely surprised when ABC does something like that. Um, I got I I got used to the corporate media doing stuff like that back in the Bush years,
Yeah,
war on terror.
yeah.
I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. It's certainly worse now, but it's seeing it doesn't slap me in the face as much.
Well, just to before you go off on NPR, I just wanted to say about ABC, they just fired Terry Moran
Yeah, I know. I know.
because he had the temerity to say that Steve Miller is a huge hater.
Yeah, I know.
And you know, reporting the truth now gets you fired.
Yeah.
So there's that. They also settled that thing with Stephanopoulos. So ABC is not covering themselves in glory. And I think their coverage of this parade, I don't know. It's like, you want to respect the army. It's supposed to be in their honor. So you're kind of in a tough spot. But, you know, it didn't sit well with me the way they covered it.
No, it didn't sit well with me at all.
It wasn't dishonest in the way that what you're describing with NPR. It was just fawning and annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Like my the coverage from NPR, it like I felt insulted.
Right,
I was like, you don't read the room. Who are NPR listeners, lady? Who are NPR listeners, NPR management? Read the fucking room.
right,
You know, don't lie to my don't piss on my head and tell me it's raining, Cat Lonsdorf.
right.
No one was there. Tell the goddamn truth. You know who told the truth? The New York Times told the truth.
Yeah,
They
they did.
actually did. The New York
They
Times told the truth
No one was there. That's what
that
they
no one
said.
was there. It was a piece of shit. It's a piece of shit that wasted $42 million or however much it cost. You know. They're lucky. They're lucky the rain held off. They might ended up with that. I saw there was actually warnings for flash floods in D.C. last night. That might have had made some problems for our military hardware that has actual legitimate uses elsewhere.
Rusting on the streets of DC.
Rather than being stored back on base in a responsible way.
It's my party and I'll cry if I want to. Cry if I want to. Cry if I want to. Good if you would cry too if it happened to you.
You had a post over on the blog earlier this week. Let me grab it. This should make you madder than almost anything.
Yeah.
And it was about one of Trump's. I don't even know what to say about it. To me, it's just like the dumbest, pettiest, dumbest shit done for the stupidest, dumbest reasons in the whole world. It's just you talk, you talk. I'm gonna shut up for a minute.
Well, this piece is about the controversy that's been going on for a long time. That it's about whether or not things should be named after Confederates.
Yeah,
That's military bases, that's ships, that's anything.
like we don't have any bases named after Rommel.
Right,
We
right,
don't have a base named after Tojo.
right, right. And so, of course, during the Biden administration, Congress passed a law. Actually, they passed the law at the very end of Trump's administration, and they overrode his veto to do it. And it was part of the defense authorization bill. And they basically created a commission to examine which bases and, well, which Confederate things needed to have name changes. And they spent, I don't know what it was, quite about a year and a half, this commission. And they identified 9 military bases that were named after Confederates and that needed, then they nominated or they came up with appropriate name changes and renamed these bases. So, for example, Fort Bragg down in North Carolina was named after Braxton Bragg, who was a Confederate general and not a
Mhm.
good one. He was renowned for being actually a poor general. So it was kind of like a double whammy. Like, why are you honoring a bad general? And
Yeah.
also, why are you honoring a Confederate?
Yeah.
So anyway, they renamed that Fort Liberty. But they also, there's 8 other bases they renamed. So the Trump obviously had vetoed that, didn't want that to happen in the first place. Then he promised on the campaign trail, as did other guys that were running against him, like Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis, promised that if elected, he would restore the names of the bases. So last week, Trump kept his promise. And for example, with he went to Fort Bragg to announce that Fort Bragg would get its name back. So no longer be Fort Liberty, it would be Fort Bragg again. But he had a limitation, which was that the law still exists.
Yes. He had to get around that pesky thing, the law part.
The law part. And the law part says you can't name these things after Confederates. So rather than have the thing be named after the actual general, it's now named after Private Roland L. Bragg, an obscure infantryman who served at Fort Bragg and fought in the Battle of the Bulge during World War II. So it's
So a nobody, basically.
in a previously obscure private. This guy's a private. Okay. He was a grunt in the
Dude,
infantry.
not to disparage anybody's military service, but
I'm
that's like,
not.
no, I'm not. I'm not. I'm
Not.
saying not to disparage anybody's military service, but that's like,
He's picked because his
remember when
name is
Christy, remember
Bragg.
what, I know it's all it's reminding me of is like when Christy Todd Whitman lost the bet to Howard Stern and had to name like a rest area after him.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was amazing. But
Yeah.
like, it's like, yeah, they picked it. Yeah, yeah, his name's Bragg, so this will fit.
Right. Well, they went down the roster of people who actually served at Fort Bragg who were named Bragg.
Oh my
And I don't know
God.
if they found more than one, but whoever they found one anyway. Roland, who bravely fought at the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah,
Credit
that's
to him, and honor his service. But he is not a Confederate, and
yep.
he did not fight in the Civil War. And he now has a military base named after him.
His great grandchildren must be so proud and surprised.
Yeah. Hopefully they were slavers. So,
Did it say that he fought in the Battle of the Bulge, or was he just was he in combat, or was he
it
like
says he
behind the
fought.
lines? Oh,
He
hey,
says he
okay,
fought. He fought in the Battle of the Bulge.
that was a
So that
braver
was
than me.
yeah. I mean, this isn't about Roland L. Bragg, but there are not any other privates who have bases named after them.
Yeah,
Anyway, so I started to look into this, Brendan, and they had a fairly straightforward job. They needed someone named Benning, so they found a new Benning. They needed a new Moore, so they found a new Moore. In the same vein as what they did with Fort Bragg. But then they got to Fort A.P. Hill in Virginia, and they couldn't find anybody named A.P. Hill to replace. So they came up with a kind of interesting strategy, which is they found they technically renamed it Fort Anderson Pin Hill to honor Lieutenant Colonel Edward Hill, First Sergeant Robert A. Penn, and Private Bruce Anderson, who fought for the United States during the Civil War. Now, here's the thing.
Mm.
if they fought in the Civil War, they had to be fighting for the Union because the law prohibits honoring
Yeah,
Confederates.
you can't do Confederates.
Yeah. So I looked up the highest ranking one of these guys, and the one whose name is Hill, and he was Lieutenant Colonel Edward Hill, and he fought in the Civil War. He fought at Gettysburg, at, at Little Big Top.
Born no, Little Big Top. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
Acorn is
And
Custer, I think.
Little Big Top. It was actually an important part of Gettysburg. It was where they held off the Confederates' attack and turned the tide of the battle. And it was not a place you wanted to be. But Lieutenant Colonel Edward Hill served there and survived with what was it, the 16th? Yeah, the 16th Michigan Infantry. Okay. And later on, he fought at the Battle of Cold Harbor in Virginia, which is about, I forget, about 35 miles from where Fort A.P. Hill is. So he was badly injured
Yes, I'm
in that
reading
battle.
about this.
Yeah. Well, if you're
Oh,
reading about it, describe his injuries if you got that.
oh God, which one? From
Well,
the one where
He got shot in the pelvis.
yes, he got shot in the pelvis. The wounded captain was placed on a stretcher and taken to a makeshift hospital where he was examined and, according to Private Jack Wood, left to die.
Yep.
But he didn't die. In fact, suffered terror. Hill knew that his physicians expected him to die. I guess he wrote this in his diary
Yeah.
after writing Alas Poor Yorick, which is this guy's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Suffered terribly from my operation yesterday, the ball having passed through the flesh of the hip, also going entirely through the ilium bone. From this point, the surgeon has been able to trace it, but I know what he thinks. He thinks it has passed into the bowels, and I will die. But he
Right.
doesn't die. He
He
doesn't
doesn't
die.
die. He lives 30 years longer. And at the end of his life, he can't stand on his own.
Yep.
He can't control his bowels.
Yep. He even says so.
Yeah.
In 1890, Hill described his disability as, quote, increasing for the last 10 years. I have been unable to be without the constant aid and attendance of another person. Am unable to dress or undress or attend the calls of nature alone. I cannot control my bowels and in consequence am compelled to lead a life of seclusion. That sucks.
That sucks,
That
dude.
fucking sucks. And by the way, let's not forget that there wasn't anesthesia back then.
No,
You know, I think morphine was new.
they didn't have antibiotics either.
Yeah,
But
so you got the whiskey,
that's why they expected him to die. Yeah, they
yep,
gave him probably whiskey to
whiskey, and then they get the bone saw, and you're not unconscious for that.
yeah. Well, in this
No,
case he didn't get the bone saw, but they decided not to operate.
yeah, because he was
And
gonna die.
yeah.
Ugh.
And somehow it didn't get infected and kill him. So he got to live 30 years like that. Um, I think it was 1893, Congress gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor. Because at the Battle of Cold Harbor, he had acted heroically and had taken out some hidden guns that the Confederates had aimed at the Union lines. And that, in the process of that, that's when he suffered his injury. So, my I looked up a little further on this and realized that actually he was fighting against General A.P. Hill, Ambrose Pierce Hill, in this battle at Cold Harbor. They were facing each other. Um, so he now is this base is now named partially after him with the other two guys to make A.P. Hill, and he's doing it.
So
Preserve the name of the general on the other side of the forces that horribly injured him.
the general who was who supported treason in support of slavery.
Correct.
That's some classless shit. That is some petty classless shit.
So it's one thing to preserve or to restore the Confederate names of these bases, but it's another thing to completely dishonor a soldier who fought bravely and suffered terribly in the war against the Confederates.
That's
And to tie his name in perpetuity to
to that motherfucker.
that
Oh,
guy.
oh,
That's the
that's
kind of disrespect to a veteran that they just casually do,
yeah.
or
I
no more thought put into it than
well,
how
that's the
do
thing.
we.
I don't think they're even thinking about it. I don't think anybody read more. I don't think any of those folks who came up with that. I don't know. Maybe they did read as much as read up on that on this guy Hill as much as you did and said, "Ha ha, we're going to stick it to the libs this time." Well, but my bet is
My
probably not. Oh,
my
this
bet
guy's
is
name is
no.
Hill. He's okay.
I don't think they looked it up.
No,
They
no,
just they're
this
just
one's okay.
they're just careless.
Yeah,
And So I found that truly, truly offensive. It made me really, really angry that they would do that to this guy.
yeah,
And that's setting aside, why are they doing it in the first place? Why are they restoring all of these Confederate names? And it's not just Trump. Like, as I said back during the 2020 campaign, when Pence and DeSantis both
yeah,
said, they said we would do the same thing. We would restore the names. So if you want to restore the names, go ahead and change the law.
yeah,
Don't
yeah,
don't name it after Union soldiers
yeah.
and then
It's that's like
pretend it's named after Union soldiers.
that's like literally the kind of shit that my it's in the same family of stuff that my middle school students would pull on me. Billy, sit down. Billy, get off the floor. You didn't say sit on that chair.
Right.
You know, Billy, stop banging your fist on the table. Kid keeps banging. Stop it. You didn't say I shouldn't bang on the wall. Oh,
Right.
fuck you. You didn't say I can't name it after things that sound like Confederate soldiers. You just said I can't do Confederate soldiers.
Right. And they're not
Asshole.
fooling anybody. And as
No,
far as I'm concerned, they should be taken to court and they should lose.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ugh,
So,
Jesus Christ. These people don't stop.
no.
You know, it's like this never-ending parade of nonsense with them. Hey everyone, it's Brendan again. If you're like me, and I know I am, you enjoy getting an honest take on the news. That's why you listen to the Progress Pondcast. But I'm not just one of the hosts. I'm the guy behind the curtain doing the edits and cuts and everything else that keeps the podcast going. And I'm asking for your support on Patreon. You know, for as little as $5 a month, you won't just help us grow our audience. You'll help update and maintain our equipment. Stuff like hard drives, microphones, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/Progress Pondcast. Don't forget that N when you search for us. Thanks again for your love and support. Over and out. Whether it's petty stuff or big stuff like we're about to start talking about, it's like this constant escalation from the right. And just yesterday, while we were still talking about what time are we going to do this, you know, blah blah blah. No Kings is getting in the way. We're going to schedule it for Sunday. You know, that same day, while I was at the No Kings rally, getting ready to go, getting ready to march, the news came in that these two legislators in Minnesota, Melissa Hortman and John Hoffman, and their spouses, both were shot by a guy.
All of them were shot.
All four of them were shot. Hortman and her husband have both died. Hoffman and his wife are still alive. I don't know what the status is right now. Yesterday, I saw them described as clinging to life. And this guy just basically went up to their houses dressed like a cop.
Yep.
And from my understanding, is that when police responded to the first shooting, I think it was the first shooting, they saw what looked like a police SUV with flashing lights out front and a person that looked like a policeman just leaving the premises.
That
And
was the second. That was the second.
And it was the gunman.
That
It
was the
the
second
gunman.
one.
Yep.
So an interesting thing when they showed up at the first place, the guy was gone.
Yeah.
And they questioned the neighbors, and he said, "Well, you guys were already here." And they were like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, I saw a cop car pull out after I heard the gunshots." And the police didn't believe the guy. And then they talked to a second neighbor, and he was like, "No, yeah, no, you guys were already here." And they were
And
like,
let's
"Well, did you call the cops when you heard?" And he was like, "No, you were already here. Like, I couldn't figure out why you were leaving."
that's
So,
just
yeah,
and
so that was messed up. But they decided, because after the first shooting, they credit to them, they thought, "Oh, we know there's another Democrat that lives very near here," and so they went over there just on a precaution, and encountered him leaving the house.
that's just freaking
Yeah,
nuts.
and in
And
that case, yeah, his car was in the driveway at that point, so they kind
and
of,
may I add on top of this that this is coming at a time when the Trump and the Republicans are trying to normalize, people claiming to be agents of the state, um, coming at you with masks and no identification, refusing to show identification. In fact, earlier this week in Philly, someone was robbed. A woman was robbed and might have been assaulted by a guy claiming to be a police officer. No identification.
right.
Came into the house and let me see if I can find it. Sorry for going like this.
Yeah, it's kind of citizens arrests with like people cosplaying that they're like ICE and stuff like that. And
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's what it is. It's from yeah. Philadelphia police are searching for an ICE impersonator.
yeah,
They're looking for a man. This was just 6 days ago,
yeah.
3 days ago.
I guess
Guy,
it's I guess
the
it's a new
guy's
fun.
impersonating. What he did, the guy impersonated an ICE officer, zip tied some woman, freaking robbed her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So this is happening, and here goes this guy doing the same thing. And by the way, he's still on the loose. They're looking for him now.
they do know who he is, though.
Yeah, they do know his name. His name is Vance Bolter, Boelter. And here's what's crazy, dude. Here is what's crazy. They're trying. I've been following it, and the news is coming out. There's a lot of misinformation around, but some of the stuff I've been seeing coming in from the right is they're trying to make him out to be a leftist or a Democrat, based on the fact that a few years ago, I want to say back in 2017, 2019, yeah, here it is. Tim Walz reappointed him, really, it looks like,
Yeah.
to an advisory board called the Governor's Workforce Development Board.
The
And he,
governor Dayton had originally put him on that, and then
yes, yep,
Wal-
and basically, Newsweek has the article. This would be MAGA pounds Tim Walz for once appointing Minnesota assassin to state board. Of course, MAGA blows everything up. They lie about everything. But yeah, the it's an advisory board made up of leaders from business, education, labor, and other sectors. 60 people affiliated. It advises the governor on workforce development strategies. But meanwhile, Laurel Loomer's going on X and saying, here's her post: Tim Walz's goons are now assassinating lawmakers who support legislation Walz opposes.
yeah, that's not even close to what happened.
Oh
So
no. Total
yeah,
shocker that Charlie Kirk, total shocker that smearing a duly elected president who won an overwhelming electoral mandate as a fascist or a king leads to violent political resignation, assassination, whatever. The dude's an idiot. It's just like, no.
all right. Well, let's clear this up.
Yeah,
So
please.
so
I saw a video of the guy.
when they got to the guy's car and they looked in his car, there was a hit list. And the hit list included a bunch of elected Democrats in Minnesota. And I can't give you an authoritative list of I can just characterize it, if that's
Yeah.
fair. But a number of elected officials, I heard one report that Governor Walz was on the list, but I can't verify that. Also, abortion providers and abortion pro-right activists were on the list. And in addition to that, he had a flyer for the No Kings rally that was happening.
They canceled the No Kings rallies because of that.
No, they actually they went off.
Oh, they did go off because I heard that
No,
Walls was saying to cancel it.
they said to cancel it, but people showed up. Like Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, showed up. They people showed up. It was a big rally in
Good,
Minnesota. People had to,
good,
even though this guy was on the loose, people
good
didn't.
because fuck you, Vance.
Right.
Yeah,
So I mean, I think it was a responsible thing to tell people you might want to not come, but
yeah,
the people had courage and they showed.
that's amazing.
Um, so I getting back to it, this guy had a hit list. There were no Republicans on it.
Yeah,
On the people that were on there because of any kind of position on an issue, they were all pro-choice people, which is not a position that is any longer affiliated with the Republican Party.
yeah. Well, once I saw his name, I started looking around online, and over on Reddit, I found footage of our man here, Vance, and he's in I don't know what country he's in because there's a
It's the
black woman
Congo, the
translating.
Congo,
Oh, is that what it is?
I believe it's
He
Congo.
is going off about gay people and trans people and how
As a
they don't,
preacher, as a
yeah, that
preacher.
people don't know what gender they are. They don't know what sex they are. And he's yelling about how the Bible this and the Bible that. So it's like, yeah, don't tell me that that's, you know, no right winger. He's one of yours. Again, he's one of yours. He's not
I
one of
believe
ours. You can,
his roommate also said that he had voted for Trump. So I think it's pretty clear that this guy is he's killing Democrats. He's uh, a major anti-trans, anti-gay rights uh, preacher man. Um, it's just not any question of who he is and why he did
yeah.
what he did. So
One,
they can try to distort it, but
yep. And by the way, I have actually already seen some attempts to both sides this.
sure.
I don't know if I think it was the Times. It might have been Politico. But it was talking about how political violence is on the rise, on both sides these days. And it went down a list, and one of the things I noticed, they they had to go way far back to find somebody on the left. They mentioned, I think they mentioned the Tree of Life shooting. Um, they mentioned, all this far right violence that's gone on and threats against, politicians and stuff like that. But when it came to the left, they had to go all the way back to like 2017, to go back to that guy that shot at Congress when they were playing baseball. There's at least 8 people that this article could mention that on the right that have shot people for ideological or political reasons,
Shut
including
up
elected
synagogues,
officials.
shut up black
Yep.
churches.
And on the
Uh,
right and on the left, it's like you got like one or two incidents in that whole time period. And
yeah,
yeah, those are to be deplored and nobody's supporting that kind of shit. But like, you know,
it's not the same. It's not an
it's not the
even.
same.
Yeah.
It's not close to even, you
And
know?
I wanted to just bring up one other thing, which was something that occurred to me yesterday while I was thinking about this, which is there was a guy who out in Colorado fairly recently showed up. There was a rally where uh, some Jewish I don't know if they were students, but some Jewish members of the community had a little rally, small rally, uh, asking people to remember that there are still hostages being held by Hamas. And this guy showed up with a kind of makeshift blowtorch
Ugh,
and just started trying to fry people and badly injured a bunch of people. And it's a pretty horrifying thing.
yeah. Yeah.
And the Trump administration's response to this was pretty swift and savage, which was that they were going to grab all of this guy's relatives and deport them with like, no hearing or
Well,
any due process.
no due process. Why? All right. So back up for just a quick second. So I can understand on a very base level, deporting the guy who did it. I mean, he should
Yeah.
have his due process, obviously, but I understand the move to be like, you did this thing, you're not welcome here anymore. I get that. Even
Yeah,
if
I'd
I
prefer to
get
put
that.
him in jail, but yeah.
Yeah. But why his family? Like, what did they do? Did
Right.
they have something to do with it?
This guy, um, is Egyptian by heritage. I don't know. That
Mm,
recently a judge uh, overruled Trump and said you got to give this guy due process.
yep, I'm looking at
Um,
that right now.
you know, measure twice, cut once, or whatever the judge said. You have to give somebody due process, and you can't just grab his whole family and throw them out of the country. But here's the thing. Because these people, well, let me correct myself, because this person attacked the Jewish community, there's this very harsh, swift response, illegal response. But
Yeah.
in this case over here in Minnesota, this is a white guy attacking Democrats. And I haven't seen anything about we're going to round up this guy's entire extended family and deport them.
Yeah.
Why? Because he's
Why?
white and
Yeah.
because he's attacking Democrats.
Yep.
And it's just a double standard. Like this kind of thing you have when you just have like arbitrary rule instead of laws. In both cases, these people committed horrific crimes and should go to jail. And in neither case should their entire families be rounded up and deported without any due process.
Yeah.
But,
No,
anyway,
but
just a
that,
thought I had.
all right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about what's going on in California with ICE and Los Angeles. Everything points to the fact that it's going over like a lead balloon. Talk to you in a few minutes, folks.
This year's no summer. Only one long, hot day.
Yeah. So anyway, before we move on, you brought up we were talking about both siding political violence, and there was one guy you brought up in the before, and we never got to talk about it. Kavanaugh. Just go on about the guy that was gonna Judge Kavanaugh's would-be assassin,
Well,
because it's illustrative of the whole thing.
yeah, so there was a guy that drove from someplace in the middle of the country to Washington, D.C. with the intention of, I believe, murdering not Chief Justice, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And he got near his house, and then he kind of had second thoughts, and he called the police and he said, "I'm here. Uh, I came here to kill Kavanaugh, but I'm not going to. Please come arrest me."
Without he hadn't even done anything.
No, I mean, well, he had driven all the way to DC and found his
But
house, but he
but
hadn't.
that's not actually a crime. I mean, he
No, I
hadn't
mean,
done it.
yeah,
He had plans to do something,
yeah,
you know.
definitely. And he acted out a good portion of the plan, but not
Yep.
the most important.
Important.
Right. And that's a serious thing that people are motivated even to that degree
Yeah. Yep.
to commit political violence. But they bring it up as kind of a rebuttal to the guy who actually broke into Nancy Pelosi's house and took a hammer to her husband's head.
Mm-hmm.
And these are not the same.
Yeah.
One
There.
guy actually did it. The other guy said, called the cops on himself.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
they're not the same.
It's
This is what happens when you're trying to create equivalency and make excuses for really serious things. So in that example, it's like, never mind about Pelosi. What about Kavanaugh? And it's like,
yeah.
well, okay, that was not good, but they're not the same.
They're not the
And
same.
and in this case, it's this guy's clearly a right winger who assassinated a couple of Democratic politicians, and they're saying, oh, but he was appointed to a board by the Democrats, so it's the Democrats who did this to themselves.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's not the same.
it's not the same.
Yeah. Speaking of not the same, let's shift on to the to what went down at the No Kings rally in Los Angeles yesterday, which I actually missed this. This is one of your catches. Apparently the LAPD kind of went off the got off the chain a little bit there.
Well, yeah, like in Philly, everything was peaceful, right?
Yeah, I didn't see. I
You
mean,
didn't see you didn't see
I
any
didn't hear
cops
anything.
beating on people or tear
No,
gassing people. So
nope.
that was true in almost every case. I think there was something went on down in Atlanta, but in Los Angeles, which has been a tinderbox,
Yeah,
since they sent the Marines in
yep.
against the governor's will, and that's all in the courts. Um, but uh, the the ICE protests that preceded this brought in, this response from the Trump administration. We're going to send in the Marines and mobilize the National Guard and all of this stuff. And so, kind of predictably, it was the one spot where the police got out of control and they were sending flashbangs at people. They were trampling people with horses.
Ugh.
They were firing rubber bullets. There's a clip of a guy on MSNBC who's running away from the bullets and the horses. That's gone pretty viral. Um, but at one point, I heard reports on social media that the two different police elements actually got in a crossfire. So they wound up shooting each other with rubber
Oh
bullets.
my God.
Um, so that was kind of funny for a lot of people, or some kind of perverse justice.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah. Uh,
How do you like it?
yeah. But that was actually a rare example. Most of these protests went off completely without a hitch.
Yeah,
So,
it was good
not
to see.
not the terrorists that they're being portrayed as.
Yeah. The speaking of ice, the and what's going on in LA. I saw this last night, and I cannot believe that I'm gonna say this, but Joe Rogan of all people got something right. I'm gonna try to find the clip. I'll put it in later if I'm able to capture it. But Rogan was talking about the ICE peop stealing children, snatching kids from their parents, and we've all seen these articles of, there was a 12-year-old that was left on the side of the street in New York City. Kids have been getting torn away from their parents. You see the images, and he was talking about that, and he was like, "Look," he's like,
if you were in the presence of a woman who came over here from Guatemala and she's poor and she's starving and they're taking her baby away and she's wailing and screaming from a primal place in her DNA, that the one thing she loves more than anything is being taken away, a baby.
Yeah.
If that doesn't freak you the fuck out, you're not a part of the team, man. You're
Right.
missing it. You're missing it. What are we here for? We're here for 100 years of whatever. That's what we're here for. If you want to spend 100 years saying, "Hey, she shouldn't have fucking broke the law," I don't want you on the team. You're an asshole, right? And I don't give a fuck if you're right or left. I don't care if you're
Yeah.
religious, or I don't care if you're an atheist. If that's what you support, you're an asshole, and we don't want you on our team.
it was interesting to me to hear that from him because, that's generally not his shtick, right? His shtick is usually this, bro, tough guy kind of thing. He's not Mr. Pro immigrant from what I know. I know he's said plenty of positive things about Trump himself. And it's just interesting to see that kind of pop out of us of the mouth of someone like Joe Rogan,
Somewhat predictable that people like certain things in the abstract and then they don't like it when they see it in practice.
Yes.
And we predicted this
Mm-hmm.
over and over again, that the mass deportation program, if actually implemented, would be pretty horrifying to people. and we're seeing it. We see a lot of these articles. They go to a business that just had all its employees plucked up. There's one in Florida where all these Venezuelans were let into the country under this program that Biden had, so they're here legally.
Yeah.
And then overnight, Trump said, "You're no longer here legally." And then immediately they went to this guy's business and they rounded up all these Venezuelans that yesterday they were here legally. So he wasn't doing anything wrong by employing them.
Yeah.
But today they're here illegally. And so they rounded him up and he's like, "What the hell? Like, I didn't think Trump was going to do stuff like this." And we're like, "Oh, well, the leopard ate your face."
They had
Right? We
had
knew
s-
this was going to happen.
they had signs at his rally that at the didn't they have them
At
at the
the
convention?
convention,
They
yeah.
had signs at the convention, mass deportation now.
Right.
Did you not see? Did you think they were talking about deporting Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Is that who they were deporting?
Right.
Were
But
they
it's always,
deporting?
oh, well,
Were
he's
they
just going to
deporting
focus on the criminals.
We're gonna deport mass. Everybody's gonna lose a lot of weight.
Right.
What the fuck, dude?
So you see a lot of this. And
There was that story in the Times earlier in May about the first weekend of June, about the Missouri town that voted Trump and accidentally deported their favorite resident, this woman who was Chinese and undocumented, has been here for 30 years, and now they're raising money for Carol and help Carol, but none of them seem to be aware that it's their fault that this has happened.
right.
Not
Yeah.
Carol. Oh God, we love Carol.
Yeah. So there's a lot of this just on an individual basis, like not famous podcasters like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan is the same. I supported this political movement. Now I'm seeing it in action and I'm recoiling
Yep.
from it. And you're seeing it in the polls. I think that was something you were going to mention, which is that
He's underwater on almost everything. The only thing I was just looking at a poll over at the New York Times. The only thing he's close to above water on is immigration, and that's 51%. So he's treading water over there.
I've seen polls where he's down on immigration as well.
I've seen those too.
And those are actually the most significant. His strengths coming in were the economy and immigration, right? Those were the things where Biden was in the worst shape.
That was where my now
Or I
former
guess
weed.
I should also mention Harris was in the worst shape.
That was why my now former weed guy voted for Trump, because of the immigrants. No matter how many times I told him and talked about it with him, and no matter how many times he agreed that I was correct and Trump was wrong, he still voted for it.
So the immigrants was one, and inflation was the other,
Yep.
and he's down on the economy, and he's down on immigration. It doesn't surprise me that he's down on other things.
Yeah.
But his strengths have become weaknesses,
Very much so.
and so that's important. And these protests, these No Kings protests, I was pointing this out to somebody on Blue Sky. They were complaining that the Tea Party protests, which were smaller than these No Kings protests, were treated more seriously by the
Oh, yeah.
press. And I was like, yeah, that's true. But let's remember that the Tea Party protests set in motion what came to be the 2010 midterms, in which the Democrats were slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
So the press wasn't wrong when they took the Tea Party seriously. If there's a problem, it's them not taking this seriously enough.
Oh, yeah.
The No
Yep.
Kings as a potential signal of what might be coming for the Republicans in the next midterms.
Yep.
So there might be some disparity there, but it's not right to say that the Tea Party was overly hyped. It was a signal that there was a major backlash
No,
against.
even though a lot of the Tea Party people were AstroTurf,
Right.
there were a lot of people that believed that were not AstroTurf at all, and those people turned out.
Plus,
Yep,
AstroTurf
I remember that.
AstroTurf can be effective.
Yes, it can.
So
Yep.
whether it is AstroTurf or not, when you get a bunch of people showing up spontaneously, angry, yelling at people, it's a symbol that side of the political ledger is mobilized, motivated.
One of the
And what you're seeing today, or you saw yesterday, was an empty rally for Trump and millions of people on the streets opposing him.
yeah, they
And
even had people on the streets in Arkansas, Huckabee,
oh
Sarah Huckabee
yeah,
State.
Idaho,
Yeah,
Mississippi, yeah, all over the
the
place.
and to
Eastern
speak of
Tennessee.
Arkansas and the Huckabees is as good a way as any to segue to the Iran Israel thing that's going on right now, because almost as soon because guess who's over there is Mike Huckabee, our ambassador to Israel, and he was posting about how he had to spend how he was in a bomb shelter, something like that.
Yes,
So
he was complaining about
yeah, he was.
being fired at by Iranian missiles.
That's what it was.
Yes, because he had to seek shelter like every other Israeli.
Yeah.
Um, what makes him special?
Well, he plays bass. That
Well, that's in
makes him
his favor,
special.
but
No, it's not. He's a terrible bass player. He's not very good.
okay.
He's not one of ours. No.
Oh my God.
But yeah, so yeah, they and this also ties right back into what's going on with Trump's, approval ratings and the growing resistance to him at home. He's in no he's we've said this too, that when something disastrous or crazy happens, he's not going to be ready to deal with it. And you know, Iran, the Israeli attacks on Iran seem to me at least to have come out of nowhere. You also wrote about this at the blog about how it was kind of a Bay of Pigs situation for Trump. And I was wondering if you could. I read that article, and my history isn't as good as yours about that era. So if you could walk me through it, that would be kind of awesome.
Okay. So
Both
the
Bay of
reason
Pigs,
the
both Bay of Pigs, and how that applies to Israel. Because if guaranteed, I'm not the only person that doesn't know the ins and outs of everything.
okay, I think you can get through this pretty quick and simply. So in the Bay of Pigs, what you had was a situation where the United States wanted to overthrow the government of Fidel Castro.
Hmm.
And to do it, they were using and training a bunch of Cubans to do the fighting, basically to invade Cuba and overthrow Castro. And this plan was developed under President Eisenhower, but there was a change in government before they could implement it. So Kennedy shows up, he gets inaugurated, and like pretty much the first thing that happens is that his military advisors, the CIA, Joint Chiefs of Staff, and everybody come to him and they say, "We got this pre-existing plan. We've been working on it. This is what it is, and we want to roll it out." And Kennedy was a little skeptical, and he said, "Well, the number one thing is, if we're going to do this, we have to have complete plausible deniability. Like, so in other words, we're not going to have like naval support or air support or all this other stuff, right? Like, they're going to have to do this on their own." You with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So when they looked at it and they said, well, if we don't have naval support and if these guys invading don't have sufficient air support, they're probably going to get slaughtered, right? So they should have called the thing off. They should have said to Kennedy, well, if you're going to put these restrictions on this thing, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But they didn't do that because their assumption was, let's just start the thing. And when it goes bad, which it will, Kennedy will have no choice to save them and to bring in the American troops to finish the job and overthrow Castro. So they started the Bay of Pigs. It went badly. It went even worse than they thought it was going to go. And Kennedy refused to, he said, well, okay, the operation didn't work. That's too bad. All these people got slaughtered on the beaches. Castro was stronger than ever, right?
Yep.
And there was like this furious reaction to Kennedy for doing that. But he was put in that position. He kind of
It
got
was dumped.
bullied into, he
It
got
was
bullied
dumped into
into,
his lap.
they gave him this operation. They knew it wasn't going to work, but they figured they could bully him into finishing the job. Okay, so that's the history on that. So why did I compare that to what's going on now? Because what's going on now is for years and years and years, Israel has been determined to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And the the we share that. I mean, the most of the world shares that goal.
Yeah.
No one wants them to have a nuclear weapon. But for example, during the Obama administration, they worked out a deal where Iran could enrich some uranium at a low level for domestic use and return for being heavily monitored.
That was the JCPOA. Is that, did I get the initials right? The agreement, the long-standing agreement that got worked out that Trump tore up.
That's correct. So the Israeli government at that time was completely opposed to that Obama deal because they didn't trust the Iranians and they want regime change and they just don't trust the long range intentions of the Iranians. Okay, fine. But that wasn't the United States position. The United States position was that we could contain them. So in this case, what's happened is Netanyahu has decided at a time when the Trump administration was in active negotiations to kind of recreate the thing they ripped up. Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's its own story.
Yeah. That's a whole other thing. Like
That's a whole story. But they kind of came around to the idea that, oh, let's try to get something kind of close to what Obama did, right? Because that's better than war.
it's, I'm just going to interject for a quick second
Yeah.
that this is actually a pattern with this administration. They fuck something up or they break something or they say they don't need it. And then they all of a sudden realize they do need it after all. And they try to rehire people.
Mm-hmm.
My friend's wife works for public health and has found out she was doged and earlier this week got a letter saying, no, you're coming back to work now.
Please
Don't
come
worry.
back.
Welcome back, come
Yeah.
on in. And it's like, but anyway, continue. So now, and he did that with the fucking NAFTA. NAFTA's bad, blah, blah, blah. And we're going to
Yeah.
call it the McUSA Act or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is, right?
There's
The
definitely a pattern.
Yes, it's a
So-
thing that he does.
Yeah. So in this case,
He
though,
could just rename it. It would just like be easier.
right.
Anyway,
So
continue.
so we're in negotiations to do that, and Netanyahu decides this is the time to attack on our own. So they've
course.
attacked, they've assassinated several of their top military leaders. They've bombed their nuclear sites. They're doing a lot more than that. But the problem is, all the experts, and you can look up any number of articles on this online. They say the Israelis don't have the military capability. The Israelis don't have the military capability to really stop their nuclear program. They can
Yeah.
disrupt it. And then the best estimates are, for a month or two or maybe 3 months, they can set them back. But a lot of these nuclear facilities are intentionally buried deep underground, and you need like these huge bombs that only the United States has. So they're doing all of this, but their goal is, what they're saying is, well, we can't allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but this won't prevent that. Okay. And it's kind of like they know that,
Yeah,
but they figure if they start this and then
I see where you're going.
they blow up the chance to negotiate. So you take that off the table. Then, in addition to that, Iran now looks at this and goes, oh, well, we no longer are part of an agreement where we won't get attacked if we just do this.
Yeah.
So now their only way to protect themselves is to see if they can enrich this uranium and build the bombs so then no one can attack them because
Yep, as
of
quickly as possible.
nuclear deterrence.
Yep.
So now the United States is in a situation where only we can step in and truly destroy these facilities. And even if we were to do that, the estimates of most of these people is it would only set them back like a year or so. Then they could, we could continue to do it. We can continue like every year to go back and bomb them
Ugh.
again.
Oh
But
my
it puts
God.
us in it puts us in that type of situation.
Ugh.
And so this is similar in my mind to how the CIA in that era uh, tried to bully Kennedy. Like, we'll start it, it won't fix the problem, and you'll be forced to come in and save the day.
So with Israel
And
playing the part of this, with Netanyahu playing the part of the CIA.
that's correct. And, the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and that
Yeah.
wasn't just the CIA, but yeah.
Mm.
And so the problem also is that, you know, you saw as soon as this happened, as soon as this fighting between Israel and Iran started, the price of crude oil went spiking and things
Yep.
like that. That's because they expect that if this continues, it'll disrupt the flow of oil and energy from the
Yep.
Middle East, and it has all these other repercussions for the world. So, you're bringing the United States into a conflict that they didn't agree to start, and we're actively negotiating to prevent. And that's why I look at it as the Bay of Pigs. Now, in the case of Kennedy, he got angry. He fired Alan Dulles, who was the head of the CIA. Okay.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people who think that the angry Cubans and the angry CIA had something to do with Kennedy getting killed like a couple years later. And I'll leave that to the side, but it's something to note that there is tremendous pressure. And if you defy that pressure, there can be some serious consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the MAGA movement, they're split. Half the MAGA movement voted for this guy because they wanted to stay out of the Middle East.
Very much so.
They didn't want to be part of the Ukraine war. They didn't want to be part of the Gaza thing. They didn't want to be
Yep.
any new.
I'm gonna quote Maureen Dowd, Hillary the Hawk, Donald the Dove.
There
Yep.
we go.
Yep.
So and there's a lot of people that are very serious about that position.
Yep.
Okay. And then you have another group of people who, they're neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
They don't support going to war to fight for Jews, right? That's not their position at all.
Yep.
And then you have more traditional anti-Muslim people who are always in favor of trashing them. You have the evangelical movement that
Yep. They love to bomb Muslims.
supports Israel for all the wrong reasons,
Yep.
but supports them fervently. Ironically, Brendan, the people that left the Republican Party were the neoconservatives, that in the Bush era, they were the ones who were like anything for Israel.
Yeah, I know.
The Wolfowitzes and the Bill Cristols of the
Yep.
world, who were all for taking out Saddam, in huge part because it was supposed to help Israel and their security. And they're not racing back to Trump on this
No.
issue, but
Nope.
I do believe that if a war starts with Iran, that they will back Trump to a certain degree on it, because that position hasn't changed.
Yeah. I don't know.
But it does
The,
split.
the-
It
what
does
was
split the right. It splits the MAGA movement.
it absolutely splits the right. The Yeah, for a person like Crystal, I can't see him. He wouldn't back Trump on it, but his not backing Trump would be more based on Trump's incompetence and inability to do anything correctly. Not that there's any kind of winning strategy there, but that would be his stance on. That would be the way he rejected it. But he would otherwise. That would be the way he qualified his objection. Because he would say Trump can't do it right. I've been following him and reading his stuff since Trump got elected. He's kind of Crystal's one of the ones who seems to have actually changed a little bit. Not that I trust him any more than I can, throw the man.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine before the Iraq War who said that exact same thing. He said, you know, I can see the logic in taking Saddam out, but uh, I just would never trust these people to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
they're
know?
idiots.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Um,
exactly.
so, and
But
that was
but
sage advice.
what I was gonna wanted to respond with you mentioned that Kennedy, Kennedy when this happened, Bay of Pigs, he was furious and he fired Allen Dulles.
Yeah.
And the question is the question. Trump's no Kennedy.
Yeah, right. The old
Trump's no Kennedy.
Lloyd
What's he
Benson
gonna
line
do?
against Dan Quayle. I knew John Kennedy. I
You know
worked with
John
John
Kennedy.
Kennedy. You
I know John Kennedy.
pipsqueak junior senator from Indiana are no John Kennedy.
But honestly, Trump must be getting torn in multiple directions at once because it's like he listens to the last person in the room, you know.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it's like for a few months he was listening to Elon, last person in the room, and so everything got doged. Now Elon's out. Now all he's listening to and it's Stephen Miller's the last person in the room, So it's like, all this shit's going on. He doesn't know what to do.
no,
He doesn't know what to fucking do.
he does not.
It's a disaster.
So a good example is Tucker Carlson, who is
Oh, I saw something with him. He said some shit.
right. So Tucker Carlson is like, we do not want to be getting into war with Iran at all. This is not why people voted for Trump. And then you have Mark Levin, who is a very pro-Israel podcaster of equal reach to Tucker Carlson, or at least close to it. And they're fighting it out, And
Good.
Levin says that Tucker Carlson is a bully, and bullies need to be punched in the face, right? And so that's a fight that just is fundamental within the MAGA movement.
So quick tangent. I've never seen Mark Levin in person,
Yeah.
but I actually saw Tucker Carlson in person on at the airport at it was either Houston or Austin. I forget which. But he was in the airport train. He was in that thing.
Yeah.
And he's a large person.
Is this,
Like he was
is
he's
this
a
pre or post bow tie?
he didn't have the bow tie on. He was just traveling. I think he was wearing like as I remember, he was wearing like these cream colored khakis.
Sounds right.
And like either a white polo or a white button down. I remember yelling something at him as I got off the train, something like, "You suck."
Yeah.
But like the yeah, he was large. He was big and doughy. There was substance to him. I would not want to get in a fist fight with Tucker Carlson. I mean he's a pussy and he'd probably lose, but if his fist made contact with you and he hit you just right, it would definitely put a dent. It would leave a mark.
I beg
But
to
I don't, so I don't
differ.
know if
I
Mark
beg,
Levin
I
is
beg to
bigger.
differ. I would love to get in a fist fight with him.
Well, yeah, but you're larger than me, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I'm-
I wouldn't
you know.
really care if I won or lost, but as you said, he's doughy.
Yeah, he is doughy. He is doughy. But so I don't know who would win. To get back to it, I don't know who would win if Mark Levin got in a fight with him. Mark looks like he's a skinny little twerp. So I have a feeling that Tucker might, kind of give him a run.
I don't know. They're both
Like the same way that if it came down to it, Francis could beat up Pee Wee in Pee Wee's Playhouse in Pee Wee's Big Adventure.
Yeah,
Like
I
if
don't
Francis
see.
really wanted to take the bike away from Pee Wee, he would literally pound the shit out of Pee Wee and just walk away with it. That's how I think Tucker could go with Levin.
I think it would be
Stab
like
it, stab it.
I think it would be like a slap fight where no one got hurt.
It might be that too.
Anyway,
I have a
so
bunch
like
of Tucker. I have other Tucker Carlson stories, but anyhow,
yeah, the whole Newport connection.
that's what I was going to say. But that's a whole different. He went to St. George's when I was when I was in high school. We're about the same age, Tucker and I.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, Tucker and I know many of the same people.
That's where he met his wife, the headmaster's daughter.
Nope, the headmaster that was turning a blind eye to abuse that was going on at the school, according to the article I read in the New Yorker.
Yep.
Yep, good old guy that Tucker. Anyway, Happy Father's Day to you, my friend. This has been the Progress Podcast, episode 25. If you like what you're hearing, well, you've heard 2 ads for Patreon already. I'm going to make another one in real time. Please join us on Patreon. Sling us a couple bucks. I know for a fact that I need a new microphone. You can probably hear that it's kind of moving in and out. I want to get one of those fancy ones like Joe Rogan has, and you can help us get stuff like that, which would be awesome. If you want to hear us more than once a month, that helps me get some work done too, because remember, I do all the production in the background. Anyway, I'll stop talking about that. Thank you so much for listening. Find us on Facebook. You can follow us on Blue Sky. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe, share it with your friends. Obviously, give us money through Patreon. You can also send us stuff on PayPal, all that kind of stuff. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube. And hey, Marty and I have actually started talking a little bit about doing a video version of this. So another reason to support us on Patreon. I'm pushing that Patreon stuff really, really hard today.
Well, if we do that, we're going to need like haircuts and stuff.
Actually, I have a great barber. I just got a haircut. If we had video, everybody could see my great haircut.
That's true.
It's which I got just a couple weeks ago. $12.50 down at the Vietnamese barber shop next to
That's a bargain.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. I hear these, and I know we got to go, but I hear these right-wing idiots like complaining about the fucking the immigrants and the trans people and all this shit, and like immigrants cut my hair for $12.50 and give me a fucking great haircut every time, right? The lady that stitched up my shorts, my running shorts, and for no money extra also fixed the little credit card pocket on the back. She's a Chinese immigrant. They make the food I like. Leave the freaking immigrants alone. I love immigrants. I think most people don't realize that they love immigrants. They just think they don't like immigrants because they hear stupid shit and they think dumb things. Anyway, enough of that. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Please catch us on the intertubes. Share what we do, like what we do, leave comments about what we do, and help support what we do. We'll see you next time. On behalf of myself, Brendan Skwire, and Martin Longman, we will see you next time. Adios, folks.
And as always, thanks to the Royal Hounds.
And as always, thanks to the Royal Hounds.
Over
Catch
and
you next
out.
time. Over and out. Bye-bye.
But Judy left the same time. Why was she holding her hand when she's supposed to